there my friends, Happy New Year, welcome back to my channel. What a great way to kick off the new year with a brand new sketchbook, and today I'm just going to be walking you through how I created this initial sketch on the first spread. Now I always start my sketchbooks on the opening page, so you have the backing of the front cover and the actual first page. I always make a digital plan for the first page of a sketchbook as well, and I do this on my iPad, and by digitally planning it just helps me to keep the size and scale correct to the sketchbook. The sketchbook I'm going to be using this year, well, one of the sketchbooks I'll be using this year is this one, the Talens Art Creation sketchbook, and it's the 8.3 inch by 11.7 inch. The pages are £94 in weight, there's 80 of them, and the weight of this paper enables me to use quite a few different mediums. But for this one I decided to use alcohol markers by Sanjoki, got the full set of 120. I'm not a marker artist, but I do like playing with them in sketchbooks, so I don't do sort of completed big pieces with them or anything like that, but they're great for using under coloured pencils, and that's what I'll be using for this double spread on the first page of this sketchbook. So what else do we have going on at the minute? Let's have a look. So working on the first page, well, the page that's attached to the back of the front cover like this does enable you to build up quite a lot of moisture because there's not another page underneath it to absorb it. So great working on this cover. When I move over onto the facing page, I put a sheet of acetate underneath, which is a waterproof barrier, stops any ink from seeping through onto the page beneath it, but also enables you to enables your alcohol markers to really mix, for the colours to fuse together, because there's not an absorbent surface underneath sapping all the alcohol out of the page, which will speed up the drying process. So just layering on different colours to roughly match the reference photos that I was working from, and the model is our pup Honey, who will be 6 months old tomorrow. So I just wanted to capture the first few months of her being here, and I thought that'd make a nice opening subject for this sketchbook. So as I was saying, these are the Sanjoki alcohol markers. I have the set of 120, and as you can see on the top left hand side there, I have them all swatched out. You do get a swatch sheet with them, and I thoroughly recommend doing that because sometimes the colours don't match the caps. They are a brush end, chisel end style of marker. They're very juicy, and yeah, I've had them just over a year and they're still going strong. None of them have dried out. I don't use them an awful lot, but I use them enough that some cheaper ones would have dried out by now. These haven't, and I do store them horizontal, not vertical, which keeps both ends of the markers nice and moist. So throughout this project I only use the brush ends. I don't use the chisel ends. The brush ends just work fine on this sort of size and scale, and the point of the brush tip is fine enough for me to get in to these smaller areas when needed. So I've had a quick look on Amazon, and as of January 2025 the 120 set of Sanjoki alcohol markers are around £108, and for me they're great. They do exactly what I need to do with an alcohol marker. Obviously, like most alcohol markers, they're not light fast, so I wouldn't be using them on a project that I plan to sell, but I would use them on a project where I plan to make prints or stickers and things like that. So brilliant buy for around about £108. They blend really well. As I said, if you got quite absorbent paper, then just pop a piece of acetate or silicone or something like that, something that's waterproof non-absorbent and very smooth underneath your page, and you'll be able to blend your colours a lot easier. So the top, this is another thing I wanted to mention. Alcohol markers, when used on their own like this as a sort of underpainting for pencil, yeah, they go through an ugly stage. As you can see, the top, the one that's finished, the base coats are finished, and yeah, boy, does that look like an ugly stage, but hey ho. So we'll be refining it with pencils as we go. So my plan was to get all of the 1, 2, 3, 4 images base coated in with the alcohol markers, let it thoroughly dry, and then come back in the following day and start the pencil process. And it really is just popping down the undertones of the base coats, sometimes squinting at your photos, your reference photographs, to get away from the detail, because at the minute I don't want to be getting any detail in there at all. I want to see past the detail and see the structure of the subject that is underneath all of that detail. And that's, you can either blur your photo digitally on your phone or your iPad, or just squint, and it gives you a rough idea of where the darks, lights and midtones need to go. So yeah, it's quite self-explanatory watching this, just blocking in certain colours. It does look like it's got a little bit of a green tinge to it, but in real life these colours are actually more on the yellow spectrum than the green. They're a little bit warmer than they're showing on screen. Well, showing on my screen. Obviously all monitors, mobile phones, iPads, tablets, they're all going to show images slightly different. And I'm looking at this screen now, and I do use an Asus screen, which is for artists, but it's just showing up a little bit greener. I've tweaked it a little bit, but hey ho. I hope you've all had a fabulous start to the new year, and if you have any New Year's resolutions, arts and creative wise, I'd love to hear about them. If you're starting a new sketchbook, I'd like to hear about that. I don't have any plans as such for this sketchbook, just that I want to experiment with a few different mediums in it. I want to try some styles and things that I haven't tried before. It'll all be in keeping with wildlife or pets and things like that. Might do some flora and fauna mixes as well, some plants, and maybe even some landscapes in here as well. But I think the only New Year's resolution I've set for myself this year so far is to complete this sketchbook. I love starting new sketchbooks. Who doesn't? You know, it's just exciting, isn't it? Taking that cellophane wrapping off and opening up that first page. And I absolutely love doing the first full spread like this of a brand new sketchbook. It's just wow. Talking to other people, they're the opposite. They love starting a new sketchbook, but they don't like doing the first spread, that first opening page. They go in with a little sense of trepidation, I guess, if that's, yeah, I think that's the word to use. Worrying that they're going to make a mistake on the first page and it's there for everybody to see. But that is the thing with sketchbooks. You don't have to show anybody if you don't want to. You know, posting it on social media as an artist, you know, I am putting myself out there for, the word ridicule came to mind, but you know, for comments that might not be very nice, and you just take it with a pinch of salt. Okay, so I've obviously by now done all of the alcohol marker base coats across all 4 subjects, and I'm now going on with coloured pencil. Now, during the process of this spread, I use the Derwent Chromaflow and the Derwent drawing pencils. Now, I am an ambassador for Derwent and I do get products sent to me, so just keep that in mind. But at the minute I was using the Derwent Chromaflow 150 set, but I only used a handful of pencils out of that set. So you don't need a massive set of pencils to get started. You don't need 120 set of alcohol markers to get started. Just get a small set of each and have a play, especially if you have a sketchbook. As I said, it's for experimentation, it's for trying new things. Nobody has to see it if you don't want them to, but you might just surprise yourself and create something that you never thought you'd create, something that you can be proud of, and something that you may go on to share with friends and family, and maybe even start posting on social media. So going back to the Derwent Chromaflow, which are the ones I'm using at the moment, I have the 150 set. As I said, I only use a handful of them for this project, but they come in smaller sets as well. So Derwent has released the Chromaflow coloured pencils in sets of 24, 36, 72 and 100, and then they released the 150 set. I've popped over onto Amazon and got some prices for you. So this is January 2025. The 24 set is currently around £30, the 36 set around £40, 72 set around £100, but then the 100 set is around £100 as well, and the 150 set is £160 roundabout. So it is worth going on, having a look, looking at the different sellers and seeing how much they're selling them for. Further on in the video, you'll see me using coloured pencils with a burgundy barrel, so a burgundy colour pencil, obviously with the different coloured pigmented leads. And these are the Derwent drawing set. Now they only come in one set size as far as I'm aware, and that's the 24 set. And I absolutely love the white pencil in that Derwent drawing set. It's called Chinese White, and if you want to buy one white coloured pencil, that's the one I'd say to go for, the Chinese White. All of the Derwent pencils, the Chromaflow and the Derwent drawing, are all available open stock, which means you can buy 1 pencil, 5 pencils, 10 pencils, certain colours that you like that you think you're going to use. So it's nice just to be able to grab a handful of pencils, colours that you've chosen, and just have a play. The Chromaflow are very soft and very blendable, sharpened to a very good point. The Derwent drawing are even softer. They have a slightly thicker lead, but are very, very soft and only come in 24 colours. So that's sort of 23 muted colours and a Chinese White. That's what the 24 set of the Derwent drawing looks like. But they all play a part. You can use what you've got, just have a play. Experiment with materials that you already have, and you might surprise yourself. The only wasted art materials are the ones that aren't being used. So before you know, having watched a YouTuber or somebody on social media, before you go out and spend your well-earned money on products that they're advertising or they're working with, try using the products you already have to begin with. When you're going and buying new products, and I've been guilty of this in the past, I end up buying a new product that completely replaces a product I already have, and then that product sits on my shelf doing nothing, and that's a wasted product. What I like to do now is only buy products that enhance the products I already have, that work hand in hand with the products I have or benefit the products that I have. So for instance, I already have a lot of watercolours, so if I were to go out and buy some more watercolours, the watercolours I already have, they're not going to get used, especially if I prefer the new ones that I've just bought. So just keep that in mind when buying new products. Make sure it's something that's going to enhance and not replace something that you already have. However, saying that, if you are used to working with student grade watercolours, for instance, and you want to start buying professional grade watercolours, try replacing them one at a time. So if you're using a lot of yellow ochre, for instance, in a student grade watercolour, when that starts to run low, replace that colour with a professional grade. You know, if it's by the same manufacturer, they normally do student range, artist professional range, and work your mediums like that. So scaling up but not replacing, unless you obviously have somebody to gift your other materials to, which is great as well. So if you get some birthday money, or you have some leftover Christmas money, which I still do, I still have some leftover Christmas money, and you fancy treating yourself to a new product that is going to replace a product you already have, then how about gifting that product that you already have to somebody to get them started on their artistic journey? So that's something to think about, something that I've been thinking a lot about over Christmas, especially watching these huge art hauls on YouTube. I personally don't like them when YouTubers go to stores and just buy tons and tons of products just to get clicks. It just feels so clickbaity to me on YouTube. I've watched a couple of them and just cringe, thinking I don't want anybody to go out and buy something just because they've seen it unboxed on a YouTube video. That's not, you know, consumerism is terrible at the moment, and we definitely live in a throwaway society. Anyway, getting off project and back to the sketchbook. So working on the top of the alcohol markers feels different to working on the sketchbook paper. Having the markers dry on the paper slightly alters the texture of the paper, and I'm assuming you can understand that without actually physically having to feel it. I was really pleased though that the Talens sketchbook paper works wonderful with markers and with coloured pencils on their own or on top of the markers. I hadn't used the alcohol markers in a sketchbook, one of these sketchbooks before. I do have quite a few of these sketchbooks, but hadn't got round to using the alcohol markers in them, and I was slightly worried that the alcohol markers, how I use them, would make the paper pill, so make it go all bubbly, but it didn't. The paper handled the markers fantastically. Now there is a ghosting on the other side of the page, this page that I'm working on now, of the subject, so you can see the alcohol marker on the other side of the paper, but it hasn't bled any further than that. And what I'll probably do is I'll probably work on a sheet of paper outside of the sketchbook, do something different to the same side, same size, and then I'll just stick that into the sketchbook on the back of the sheet I'm working on now, just so that I'm not actually sort of wasting any of the space in the sketchbook. When I finish it, obviously I said it's got 80 sheets of paper, that's 160 drawings, paintings, sketches, and I want to fill it this year. I want to cram that sketchbook full, and what I want to do, I want to experiment in there with designs and things that I'd like to use on a larger scale. So here I'm using the Chinese white drawing pencil and one of the other drawing pencils, I think that's terracotta. They are a lot softer than the Chromaflow, although the Chromaflow are very soft, but as you can see, that's a Chromaflow, and I'm working with both pencils on the same layer and they blend beautifully. Also, during this process, I did use the Tombow Mono Zero eraser. It looks like a pen, but it's got a retractable eraser in it. And you can, as long as you've not pressed on too hard with the coloured pencils, you can lift them off and get back to the marker layer. Obviously, you're not going to get back to the colour of the paper because the marker, the alcohol ink in the marker has stained the paper. But that was something, got some quite nice, interesting highlighted areas by taking the Tombow Mono eraser over the coloured pencil. So yeah, that was interesting and fun. I also used the Prismacolor Colorless blender pencil, and it just looks like a pencil, but it doesn't have any pigment in it. It's just simply a stick of wax and encased in wood, and that little bit of wax added between different colours that are overlaying each other just helps the different colours of coloured pencil to blend together. So that's the Prismacolor Colorless blender. I'll pop all of the materials in the description and then you can have a look for yourself. Towards the end of the project, and you can actually see it here, the highlights in the eyes, I used a Uniball Signo white gel pen. So that's a Uniball Signo white gel pen, and just popped a little bit of white in there. The Chinese white is brilliant, but it just didn't bring the whites up to the crispness that I felt I needed, especially the eyes of this larger subject. This is the largest one on the right hand page. So blending, blending, blending. And I'm going to have a play with some different camera angles this year as well, because I keep getting my head and my hair in the way of the camera. So I will be figuring that out as I go through this year. So on my easel at the minute I have a large acrylic painting with another one to one side, so I've got one to finish and then I'll be filming the next one. And many projects, teaching later on in this month in Lancashire, so I need to get a painting sorted for that. So I alternate when I'm teaching face to face with students. I alternate the classes between watercolours and pastels, and this month's watercolour. And I haven't chosen the subject yet, and it's on the 25th, so work to do. But hoping to get more YouTube videos out to you all this year, definitely. So building up the layers and going very light-handed. The paper doesn't have a lot of tooth, and obviously some of that tooth has been altered by using the alcohol markers. So what I like to do is just very, very lightly in little circles apply the coloured pencil, and then I can go one layer over another, over another. Now if I want a colour, a pencil colour in one area, and I want that colour there only, then I can start burnishing, and it makes the tooth of the paper flat, but it also makes the colour have more saturation in that particular area. So if you do want a particular colour with more saturation, burnishing is the way to go, because light-handedness saves the paper texture but doesn't apply a lot of pigment. So the paper or the colour of the alcohol marker can always show through, but by burnishing, generally you tend to get a more saturated area of colour. I didn't notice any shine at all after using the Derwent Chromaflow or the Derwent drawing, even in places where I did burnish the colour down. So just remember, the harder you push, the less layers you are able to put down, because you're flattening the tooth of the paper and it gives nothing for the coloured pencil to actually stick to. Now I could have gone on to Honey's nose just here with a darker alcohol marker and put down a darker base coat, which is what I did on the other images on this spread. But I decided, because of the larger size of this drawing, just to go on with the coloured pencils and darken it as I go. And I used burgundies and deep wine or deep scarlet, I think one of them's called. Yeah, but as I said, just a handful of colours for the whole spread actually. And using the Derwent drawing pencil there, just because it's softer. And with it being softer, you are able to apply more pigment quicker. It lays down a lot quicker because it's softer. So that was nice as well. Not that I was in a rush or anything like that. I did the alcohol base coats across the spread in one day, and then I worked the pencils over the next couple of days, I believe. So 3 days work in all, apart from the sketching. But I did that of an evening, listening to, I don't know if it was a podcast or it might have been listening to something on YouTube now, I can't remember. But I don't want to rush anything in this sketchbook. I just want to have fun and be able to share it all with you. So as you can see, the colour I've already popped in as well, just the base coats for the colour, just with the alcohol markers. And to be honest, working with the alcohol markers first does speed up the process. It makes the whole process a lot quicker if that's something you're after too. So if I was to do this whole spread just in coloured pencil, I'm using the tiniest point on the pencil to cover quite large areas, and it's going to take a while. But just by getting some base coats down with the alcohol markers, one, it gives it vibrancy, and two, it does make the process a whole lot quicker. The pencils have very good light fast ratings. You can go through and they're individually marked in the sets which pencils have the highest light fast qualities, and if you wanted to splurge, you can always go for the light fast set from Derwent, where all the pencils have high light fastness, if that's something that interests you or concerns you, whichever way you look at it. So building up the layers, building up the texture, softening those edges with a Chinese white. And I just used a normal metal pencil sharpener by Stedler, just to keep these pencils nice and sharp. Nothing fancy. Now here for this chest area, what I did is I sharpened the Chinese white pencil, started putting lines in, directional lines for the fur. And what I was playing with here is the idea of glazing. So popping all these lines in, being careful to let some of the base coat colour show through, and then going over with the Chromaflow pencils, letting the pigment of the Chromaflow pencil tint the white and drop down in between the white lines to the base coat, and you'll see that here. So very light hand, so the further back along a pencil you hold it, the lighter the strokes, because you're not applying too much pressure, and it's literally glazing, it's tinting the white, but the full pigment is able to drop down in between the white lines and give you some directional flow in the hairs around the chest. That was interesting, that was enjoyable, and it just gives it a little bit of added interest in that area. I could have done that over the whole animal if I was doing something that was quite light in colour and building up the layers like that. So yeah, all about playing, experimenting. Sketchbooks are amazing, but I'm not happy with just doing a little sketch. I do like to sort of not force it, but push it as much as I can in a sketchbook. So I do end up with something that looks pretty, even if it's just to me. Other people might think, oh, that looks weird or strange or don't like that, but as long as I like it, that's fine. And with a normal, let's say, watercolour painting, you might get to a point where you really don't like that watercolour painting and you want to start afresh. That's fine. In a sketchbook, you can push just that little bit further because you've got nothing to lose. It's just another page in a sketchbook. And it doesn't matter if you try something completely out of the ordinary in a sketchbook. If it works, it works. If it doesn't, you just turn the page and try again. But I do think sketchbooks give you a little bit more, what's the word, courage, maybe? Yeah, just a willingness to experiment that little bit more. A sketchbook should be your friend. Friend for life if you've got a sketchbook. But I can thoroughly recommend the this Talens art creation sketchbook. I've got different sizes, different formats, but the paper is off-white, so it's sort of a light creamy colour. Not very heavy, so only 94 pound in weight, so it's not like the weight of a mixed media paper, but it's heavy enough. I applied a lot of alcohol marker to this paper, especially on this subject here, this drawing of honey. It didn't warp, the paper didn't warp, I didn't have to clamp the paper down or anything like that. It dried flat. It's really nice paper. I've worked with watercolours, gouache, graphite and charcoal in the past in these sketchbooks, and it handles the mediums so well. So for me, it's a definite. Just moving the silicone sheet underneath, just so I've got a nice smooth area that I'm working on there. It's also nice if you're quite heavy-handed when you're working with pencils. It's still nice to have either a silicone sheet or a piece of really thin Perspex, something really smooth but hard underneath your page, so that you don't damage the page underneath the page that you're working on, if that makes sense. It just protects the pages in the rest of the sketchbook. Now once this is finished and photographed, I will put a sheet of glassine in here, just so the pages don't rub together and blur the images. You can spray it with a fixative, but a sheet of glassine between each sheet and a sketchbook does the trick, and that way you can work with different mediums but have no transference between one page and the facing page when the sketchbook is back on your bookshelf. And I do stand my sketchbooks upright. I don't lay them flat and pile them on top of each other, because there's more chance then of pigment transfer between pages if I forgot to put some glassine in between pages. So just going very lightly along the foot there. Didn't put very much detail at all into the feet, because I wanted the main focus to be on Honey's beautiful little face. She's 6 months old tomorrow, and I love her dearly. We've been out in the snow this morning. She absolutely loves snow. Yeah, -5 this morning, and it was wonderful just seeing her running about, and oh, brilliant. Love her to bits. So going on, just finishing off some lighter areas there around her toes. So as I said, not too much detail in the feet. If you want somebody just to look at a certain aspect or part of your work, put the detail there, and then gradually minimalize the detail where you're not really bothered whether the person looks at it or not. It adds to the interest of a piece, but it's not the focal point. And that's what I wanted to do here. So on the faces of Honey on this double spread, that's where the detail is, apart from where she's wearing the little puppy harness and where she's wearing a collar in this one. There's a little bit more detail there. But more detail in the face, less detail elsewhere. And that's how it ended up looking, complete. Haven't signed it, it's my sketchbook, I know it's mine. If I do any prints from this, they'll be digitally signed, and yeah. If you do have any questions, leave them in the comments below. Thank you for making it to the end of the video. Thank you for the likes and subscribes. And let's all have a wonderful 2025. Get creative, have fun, and I'll see you all soon. Bye for now. Bye-bye.